creators. Welcome to Worldbuilding Secrets.
It's good to be here, Zuzy.
Hello.
Yay! All three of you are members of the Uniovers, and all three of you have been really great participants in both our New World Genesis program, but honestly, it's just part of our community. Kevin, you've been creating like crazy. So have you, Luke. Lady Aventry, you're one of our mods. Let's start with some introductions. Maybe start with Luke because you're in my top corner.
Well, Luke, you guys see me on the channels as Mesh. I came to join into got interested in the universe kind of via the pseudo guild that the guys I run with. You'll see many of us have our name tagged with Realm on it. We all kind of met each other on Myria grinding for roles on Myria Discord. And I got keyed onto that mostly because I was just starting to get into NFT world and looking at it. I kind of came more out of the DeFi space and just hanging out with DGens in Telegram, and then you slowly kind of find your way into other projects. And Myria kind of got me going on GameFi and Web3 in a way that I hadn't really been exposed to before. And then I found the Realm guys, and they were all going crazy about the collectibles airdrops, and I do not have a perfect set, much to my eternal shame. But that's kind of what got me into it, and I love that kind of stuff. I nerd out for it, so it's been really fun.
Well, we discussed this before. I had a very unique encounter with Brent Friedman on an airplane, and that's kind of how I got pulled into Unioverse. Kind of looked over his shoulder, saw.
I still couldn't believe when you told me that.
Saw the Universe homepage.
Crazy.
Started looking into it. I was like, oh man, I have to introduce myself to this guy. So we had an awesome conversation. He was stuck next to me on a 2.5-hour airplane ride, so I got to pick his brain for quite a bit.
Out of all people, Brent is definitely the best person that you could have possibly been sitting next to. He's got a way with words that's extremely unique and just captivating.
And he was very kind. He gave me lots of his time.
Avon.
Yeah, hi. Well, I have always been a big gamer myself, so played a lot of World of Warcraft. Met my husband there as well.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, you don't hear that very often, right?
No, you don't.
So yeah, I really love gaming, and actually, DigiDab was talking about the Unioverse to me. I knew him from other projects already. And he was like, oh, you have to see this. And he was very excited about it. And then Discord wasn't open yet. But as soon as the Discord opened up, I got an invite and got in.
Oh, you were one of the day ones.
Well, not day one, but I'm here from April last year, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly when we launched our Discord. Yeah, April. And we became public. Oh my God, it's been almost a year. That's crazy.
Yes.
Time flies. The three of you have been participating in our Neural Genesis program, which is anyone that's been in our community knows that it's our program to really get creators in our community excited and motivated to start creating with guidance. And we began with a 4-week format. What were your first impressions of the Neural Genesis program when you first saw it being introduced? Have you seen this happen in other projects?
Not at all.
Engagement where we're being encouraged to try and write or create canon kind of lore for a system like this, which that's kind of what attracted me to it, was the opportunity to kind of get an indelible mark into the system, because I think that overall Universe has a pretty solid foundation of what they're trying to do, and I really liked reading the Malcolm Orion stuff. Like I'm a total like sci-fi and fantasy epic saga kind of nerd, so I love that stuff. I eat it all up. So it was just an obvious thing for us for me to try and get my hooks into, because I like to talk. I like to be as everyone can kind of see my entries right away. I'm a little wordy, so yeah. I really enjoyed it.
Kevin?
I mean, yeah, I think the initial idea when it started coming out was just like, oh, this is gonna be fun. This is a lot of fun. We get to kind of like almost like casually go along and help create. And I think that first week, once we saw everyone's first submissions, I realized, oh, this is serious. Like there's a lot of really good talent out there, and like we got I mean, I was working with empty pencils and like we got blown out of the water that first week. I'm like, okay, so the bar is going to be pretty high on this. I think the way that Andy and Brent have it set up is that they're walking us through a lot of steps that I think would be natural to skip along the way. And so they kind of force us to dive into a lot of details that I think it was assuming we don't need to get into this level of detail unless our story actually gets that far. But I think
Right.
after seeing it now out of the full 4 weeks, it all was very purposeful, right? And all those details are fleshed out, and you have a very complete world to actually build out of now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally agree.
So here's a
Yeah.
fun fact, is actually when we first, when the guys approached me about this idea for the first time, and this was mentioned, we talked about it a couple months ago. And then when we really wanted to, it's like, okay, now this is the time. We have time before Krisha. We have time before collectibles. This is when we should do this. And the idea was to have it be a lot more complex, and basically it being like an open format competition, and where you have to create your own planet and you have to do everything you just did, but on your own without really much explanation on how to do it. And then it would be, you'd have to pitch it to basically you'd have to submit it, and then 10 finalists would be chosen and they'd pitch it to the Security Council. I didn't like it. I mean, I liked it, but I thought that the community needed some sort of trial run for us to learn from a little bit more, to see, not everybody can just create worlds. Like it's really hard. So that's when we came up with it being a 4-week program, and all of us, the whole team sat down and we're like, so how do we structure it? And our first week naturally was one of the easiest week, which was funny because that's when we had so many submissions, and I mean, naming a planet. And then as the weeks went by, we had fewer and fewer submissions. We always had at least 10, but fewer and fewer submissions. But it started to be the same people. And it was obvious because all the submissions were so good.
Yeah, I'm very creative. I have a very creative mind, and like the first week was way easier than the last week, for example, because you have so much freedom. You can go every direction that you want to go, and as more and more information is flowing into the world, you have to abide by more and more rules. So yeah, that was a challenge. The last time definitely was a challenge, but a very nice one, because for me it was difficult, but yeah, it was really nice to try it out and to actually succeed to get to the finalists again.
Definitely.
Yeah, Lady puts it kind of puts it perfectly there. Like you got to start with that kind of tabula rasa off the first round, just naming the planets, and like what I went through there, or what I established there, was I just took some of the artwork and established some, and use that as something to go and look up something lore-ish that, like, I don't really know if I could write a bunch of gibberish names off the top of my head, but if I have something to kind of base it around, then you can find something that approximates all those stuff and still gets people's energy, like gets their mind to kind of wrap around in a nice way. And that's kind of what led to the, using Mayan kind of gods and Mayan pantheon to fill in the names around what eventually became Seiba. But yeah, I mean, week over week, having to adapt and adjust to what the previous week's winner's view was, and how it structured the world for you, and gave you guardrails, but also gave you something new to chew into every time. Was like, I thought it was a really smart way of building it up. I think probably the toughest thing about it was trying to think of it as a narrative of a person, responding, like someone who's making a submission to a council. I don't think that necessarily all of us, myself included, necessarily stuck to any kind of formatting rules, or trying to treat it as a narrative. There were definitely some submissions that had that structure, and then I think as the weeks went on, where it was clear that you didn't have to have that structure in order to necessarily win the votes of the community, that you could still be successful. So yeah.
Awesome. Really great thoughts.
That's interesting. That's interesting, because like the hardest part for me was actually stepping out of the narrative aspect, because that's how I attacked like the first week. It's just like, let's just jump into the story. Yeah, sure, we'll throw some names out for some planets, but like I want to get into the story and start talking about like what the next part. I was like 2-3 weeks ahead, and then I started seeing like who actually made the finalists, right? And realized that what they built were Wikipedia, or like the wiki entries. It was comprehensive, right? It wasn't directed towards a particular story yet at that point. And I realized, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
like that's what I had to do. I had to kind of step back and realize, like, take it through the lens of what this would be in the archives, as part of the merge, not just
Yes.
what my end story would
Yeah.
be if I wrote it all the way through. That was really challenging for me.
Yeah. It's a good point because yeah, and it was also really challenging for Andy and Brent, and specifically Andy. I mean, he spent so much time really, really analyzing each submission, reading each submission. He had great feedback on every single one. And something we actually want to implement with time is to allow for. Actually, I'll get into this later. I'll get into it later. But he was saying the same thing where it's so difficult because you have to, he had to separate himself from like, I really enjoy this submission. I think this is incredible creative work, but does that follow the rules and does it follow the prompt? And is that, you have to almost pretend like he is actually on the security counselor and he actually lives within the Unioverse and he's physically there and he has to reimagine, like, does that fit? Does it work? Is it worthy of being part of the merge? Is there anything you guys didn't particularly like or maybe thought could have been done better? Even from, it doesn't have to be from a specific perspective, but overall during your process, was as a creator, was there anything maybe you wanted more of?
Well, I do have a point, but I don't think it's possible because I
Okay.
would love to have had feedback on the submissions.
Okay, let's pause here.
Like, okay.
Let's pause here because this is exactly what we're actually going to be discussing for the next round. We want to do is to take away the competition aspect, and we want to basically say you can now create a planet. This could be any planet. It's not going to be living in the wiki. It's going to be living within the Unioverse. Think of it as a creative database for when the SDK and games start coming out. Those are the places that people can start going to. And those are the places that you as creators can own and control and work with developers to continue to build, but also amongst yourselves, right? Like Kevin, if you create a planet, Avon, you create another planet. What if your species somehow interact? But the idea is to, one, allow you to work in teams, and two, ability for you to get feedback.
I think that's awesome. I think that was probably one of the challenges was in the competitive forum, like we would be talking about some of the ideas in like the Discord chat, but like you couldn't really collaborate, right? Because then you read someone's answers, and you're like, oh, I would have loved to have a little bit of discussion before like that became the specific, archive entry that it was. Like it would have been, I think, really beneficial for everyone to be able to collaborate just a little bit more and really test a lot of those ideas against the archive's backstory and even combine ideas. So I think would be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think I suggested in there when we were bandying ideas around that it would be cool to have a choose your own adventure or a build a narrative kind of a exercise on one of these where we could all just put a paragraph in one at a time where it's kind of grown organically that way. I thought that would be kind of fun,
Oh, that's
at least
cool.
for one of them. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I think it's a really cool idea. Would you guys prefer for this to exist within a narrative, like more of a narrative standpoint where you're, for example, you're creating a plan and you're doing it from a first person perspective, right? Or third person, but it's a narrative. So it's someone going and slowly starting to discover things along the way. And that's how you are building the planet. Or from more of a informative standpoint where you can, be like, there is this planet, it's this size, this is its environment. You don't necessarily have to have that narrative aspect of, somebody going and exploring. What do you think?
That answer will get different for every
I think
people,
so, yeah.
I think, because I'm really writing from the narrative point, but like Stagmatic, for example, he is really to the point, very informative. So yeah, people are approaching it very differently.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it has to be a balance.
Like I said, I approach this entire thing from the narrative standpoint, and I get why Andy and Brent were pushing for the more informative, because that way it's comprehensive and like you don't have to fill in any gaps.
They're actually pushing for narrative. Ironically, they like narrative, yeah. For this, right? Maybe not pushing. I mean, they don't want to, bias in any way. But I think with narrative, you have a lot more opportunity for one, just creativity as a whole, but two, for the worlds to somehow interconnect because you have storylines. Whereas on the informative side, not necessarily. You can, mention specific storylines, and you can say that there's this species that lives there and they've done this and explored that, but you don't really get inside, their heads, and you don't get to control where they go because you're focusing on the informative part of the entire planet, right? So I think it probably will have to be a balance of both. We'll see. Maybe we have to just vote.
What I would love to be able to
Or
do is like, if I'm on a creative team doing this, like certain people collaborating together on a narrative, if there's someone who sees this type of progress through the kind of more of an archives wiki entry, like informative background, to be able to collaborate with them as well. So they, they're building that out at the same time that we're building the narrative, and then that'd actually be very beneficial to bounce back and forth between the two.
It'd be a really interesting challenge to have you guys try and build one world together, but each of you have your own narrative or informative standpoints you choose, and you have to kind of work together to try and find a balance and some sort of harmony within each of your narrative standpoints, right? Because ultimately, that's exactly what Brent and Andy had to do. There's 10, 15 writers. Same with any, book you write when you have other writers. The same thing. Any kind of world building, you have to work with other people. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the challenges the guys talk about a lot, is it's hard to sometimes do that because finding the right people with each their own opinions and their own ways of going about writing and even character building. I'd be interesting to see how you guys can, work together and see how it goes and where it goes.
I think it would be awesome to work together as a whole.
Are you guys more of we'd prefer to work together than individually?
It could be a challenge at times. I think that work together would be great. I think there may be challenges around just logistics, right? I live, North America. Some others may live in Europe or in Pacific, Asia, America. You know what I mean, right? So,
right.
That may be a bit of a challenge, the logistics, to get everyone to get on the same page and find times to work together. Everyone has their own style, and they're going to have their own kind of thoughts about how to develop or how detailed to get. Like I think I like to do the detailed stuff. You want to give enough for the person to kind of have something to imagine, but you don't want to fill all the blanks in. It's not like I don't think it should be an encyclopedia entry. I think it should be more like, I think it should be, to me, kind of in keeping with the thrust of where the Malcolm Orion stories kind of set things, where you can use world building as part of driving a narrative first or third person wise of an individual character or set of characters. Yeah.
Awesome. Is there anything you guys wish you would have been able to maybe know more of to create? Like, was there at any point when you guys were creating, was there anything where you were like, oh, I wish I knew a little bit more about Protons, or I wish I knew a little bit more about the Meso, or anything to do with the Universe?
I think almost all our questions were answered on the spot when we have them. So
that's good.
Yeah, I think there were some creative liberties that were extended to us for certain things, like when Malcolm was originally on Sieba, and I think he was struck and bled onto the ground, right? And the blood that got absorbed into the soil, and then we had all of the four-eyed cats immediately see him, right? And so there wasn't a wiki to go behind what was going on there, but then being able to it seemed like we were given the liberty to kind of take that and run with it as we wanted to, and I think different people did different things with that, which was really interesting.
Yeah. I think that's ultimately what it's about, and we just want to provide the right space, the right resources, and the right environment to create and embrace creators.
Getting feedback here and there with Andy and Brent. If we reach a point where we feel like we've kind of created a comprehensive world, would we be able to, I guess, call upon the merge to be able to pitch that product as a group to possibly be adopted in the canon? Okay.
Absolutely. I think, as long as that's, yes, I mean, to apply 100%. And I think it'd be really cool for you guys to sit down with Brent and Andy and pitch it. And it could be a really fun debate from their end as well, because there's certain things I'm sure they'd be pretty strict on in terms of, rules and guidelines. But I'm sure there's certain things that you guys could argue, because you could say that actually it works because this world has done it before. There's many ways to go about that. But I think, yeah, definitely. I think that's exactly the way we want to go about it now. Is it's more, We are here to just help you create worlds within the Unioverse, any kind of worlds, whether you just want to create a species, whether you just want to create, I don't know, certain environment, or you want to create a star system, or you want to create a planet, whatever it is. It gets to a point where you guys come together and you're like, this is good enough to actually hopefully be part of the lore and for it to be accepted into the merge. And let's have our opportunity to pitch it.
I think that gives us a nice objective and long-term kind of goal to work towards as a community, which I think will be a lot of fun.
Yes.
Nominate some teams to figure out who you want to work with.
Yeah, everybody can work.
Challenge.
Yeah, and I think anybody, it's going to be up to you guys who you want to work with and how many people you want in that team. But I think the cool part with this structure is that even though you might be in your teams, there's nothing that stops you from suddenly changing team members or working with other people, as long as you all agree on it and somehow your world's intertwined. I think there's no harm in that. Awesome. That kind of brings us to the end. Do you guys have any questions, any other things, or any things you guys want to talk about or address from a community standpoint or any other standpoint? Are you excited for proving grounds?
Can I have a Krisha pinnacle?
It's the question of the year. Yeah, super exciting. And hopefully when the proving grounds comes out, that's something we're also encouraging is for people to stream it, and we can really showcase its utility in real time rather than just, tell people like, go play. We're really going to try and shift our community to be like, record yourself, try compete to be each other's times and explore and maybe find things that you can't, some people found it, some people haven't, and share the experience. So that's exciting. That's coming April 26th.
What's your best time so far, Zuzy?
Yes. I have a max, so I haven't even been able to try it, which sucks. Yeah, I know. There's a few of us on the team that have max, and most of them have PCs because they're all primarily gamers, or at least have been working in the industry for a while. So yeah, there's a few of us that are just like, this is sad. We can't even play it. But no, I'll have access to a PC soon, and I'll try. We'll see, because I don't know. I wasn't a big gamer, and I'm not a big gamer. But I love gaming. I love the concept of gaming, and I love the worlds and the environments and the opportunities that gaming presents. I think that's probably what enticed me the most to join this project, is like, it's just so communal. It's so communal. Everyone wants to work together. It's really exciting, and I think you don't really see that in a lot of other like industries within the entertainment industry. So it tends to be a lot more competitive and a lot more individual rather than like multiplayer.
And a lot of opportunities as well, I think. Yeah,
tons of opportunities. I mean, especially now within Web3 and, the whole reason why this project even exists is to solve problems that need solving. So yeah, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
I'm really happy you found the time to join me. And stay tuned for phase 2 of the Neural Genesis program. It's going to be great.